They don't care where something came from as long as they have it, and that's really a shame.
Yeah, it's kind of shameful.
Well, you know what? I look at it. There have been, in classic masterpiece artwork, there's been massive, forgeries going around. So, maybe this puts comic books in the realm of, of classic masterpieces.
Well, I personally have always thought it was in that realm anyway.
Right.
I'm a comic book
Trying
snob.
To see the glasses half full, right?
And also like I've been very lucky because of my friend Norm Hood and Lita Davis, who own Chimera Publishing. They're the largest dealers of science fiction and fantasy fine art in the world, and I did New York Comic Con with them for years. I did a ton of horror conventions with Norm, and I've gotten to meet a lot of amazing artists that Norm's friends with, Michael Whalen, Larry Elmore, Dave Dorman. These guys are all, incredible people. Rowena. Because Norm gave me a pencil sketch, a Boris Vallejo anatomy sketch that he was doing. He was doing a life drawing class in Manhattan back in the day, and Norm had bought these two gigantic oversized 3-ring binders just filled with Boris, sketches, and he sold them. He said he made he paid Boris like $400 for the 2 books, and he was selling single pages of it for $400 a pop, and he just gave me one. It's not signed, but you look at it, you can tell it's Boris.
Right.
And so there's people in that business that are next level fine artists,
Definitely.
And whether or not they're painting dragons and spaceships, they're incredible at what they do.
Well, you have Lori Lipton. You know Lori Lipton?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love her work.
Spectacular. Mm-hmm. Okay, so our next segment here at the Literate Nerds is what I like to call the Literate Revisit, where we check out some piece of content that we all enjoy, whether it's a film and television series, a book, or a piece of music. And tonight we're going to talk about a very specific piece of music that we all love very much. Bad music for bad people from the Cramps.
Yay!
This
is my wheelhouse.
From the Wikipedia page, it's the second compilation album of previous unreleased material by the American garage punk band The Cramps. I would say swamp rock band The Cramps.
I love that.
It was released in 1984 on IRS Records and was seen by most fans as a cynical cash-in by the record label following the departure of the band. Sounds, the now defunct UK music paper, gave the album a 5-star review, but said Miles Copeland's IRS label picks the carrion of their former label mates even cleaner by releasing a watered-down version of the Off the Bone singles collection that was released in the UK. The music's still great, even if the scheming behind bad music for bad people stinks of decay and corruption.
I want to argue with that. I want to fight that guy, because that was Off the Bone was a British import before. We had to pay like $20 for it back in the day. So he released bad music, which actually has a better track list. Fight me.
And $20 for a record in 1984.
That's right.
I mean, you could find in 1984 you could find like beaten up first printing copies of Pink Floyd's The Wall for $20.
Oh,
easily.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably find a beaten up copy of the White Album for $20.
Yeah,
with
the photos still in it.
Yeah. But I remember, because even long before I was a fan of the band, that album cover was so iconic. And an older kid that I was in Spanish class with in high school had that shirt. And I had an irrational fear of zombies. Is there a rational fear of zombies? And so it used to freak me out. And I had never listened to them. And I really didn't listen to them until maybe late in high school or early college. But yeah, that album art is the creep on the cover, I guess, is
amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Pat, we were talking the other day, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I love the album because I bartended at dive bars for like 11 years. So I saw all sorts of interesting individuals, as you understand. And one of my least favorite customers look exactly like the cover art. And I get a kick out of that. We keep calling him a creep because so is that guy.
Yes. And for those of us, for those of you listening out there, his name might rhyme with Spike Rogan. Yeah, he's an absolute character. The album is just top to bottom, though. It's there's not a bad song on it. Like right off the bat, Garbage Man and New Kind of Kick are two just fucking rocking tunes. Love Me is, like a kind of a strange, a rockabilly cover of a Jerry Lott song.
Yep.
I Can't Hardly Stand It is another one that's just
that hits me close to home.
Yeah. She Said is great. I think my favorite track on the album is Goo Goo Muck.
I love
yeah,
that was the first Cramp song that I heard. So that was it. I mean, because I was 12 or 13 and I listened to the Ramones and I was just in the Sex Pistols and that was it. So Cramps were my first foray into anything else other than the Ramones and the Sex Pistols, and Goo Goo Muck was the song that got me there.
Yeah, and Save It is another great tune that's a cover. But Human Fly and Drug Train, were
a lot.
Yeah,
I've been aboard that train before.
I love that.
I have been there.
You were saying, Theresa, you love?
I know. I love that song, The Human Fly. And, I love the whole feel of the whole album. Like, I like a lot of different music, but I love rockabilly and I love psychobilly and I love the whole vibe. Every song, like, it's like different, but not, I don't know how to describe it from like my point of view, but
they knew how to produce. So they got the right amount of echo and reverb and feedback. And so they were able to really harken back to the days of, way back in the 50s. And, back in the 50s, you had your horror nerds and then you had your rockabilly outcasts, but they didn't really combine themselves. So the Cramps were, when you think about horrorbilly or psychobilly, whatever you want to call them, it's like they took these two separate groups of outcasts and combine them into one.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think like Goo Goo Muck has like a very like almost like a surfer music vibe, like I don't know how else I see it. I like very creepy things. So it's very like, pleasing to my ears to like listen to. Cause I don't know. It's fun. I like how, I Can't Hardly Stand It has like, that typical like rockabilly, like slow energy that I love. Like
it's got the echo and the reverb. So
yeah.
Well, without a doubt, I think, Poison Ivy is one of the best rockabilly guitarists of the modern era.
She knew her stuff. It's funny. There were pictures of her floating around on the internet in like 1971. And you look at her 5 years moved on from that, or 71, 72-ish. You look at her less than 5 years later, and she's completely transformed into rockabilly diva.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and obviously Lux was, the man was oozed style, and by the way, was a huge collector of classic EC horror comics such as Tales from the Crypt and Vault of Fear and all of that stuff. He evidently had one of the most complete collections of that stuff of any private collector.
That's awesome. I feel like that's very fitting too, you know?
Yeah, he was a real nerd, you know. He was really in for it and loved it, you know.
Outcast.
And lived it, you know. I mean, he walked around. It was he was. It was like Lurch in a latex suit walking into a store down south. I mean, could you imagine that shit? You know, when they were on tour. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if anybody would mess with him. I certainly wouldn't mess with him. But this, I just wanted to read a couple of lines, the lyrics from Human Fly. I'm a human fly, and I don't know why. I got 96 tears and 96 eyes. It's just fucking brilliant. You're calling out the 96 tears, and just making that like I can see a cartoon fly like crying.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the lyrics are so visible.
Right.
Yeah.
And he grabs from all different, he's grabbing from comics to horror, old bad horror movies, B movies to, it's 96 Tears.
Yeah. It's just
Garage Rock, and he's amazing. And let me tell you, other than the Butthole Surfers, I don't want to mention it, but of course you knew I was going to mention them.
Absolutely.
Other than the Butthole Surfers, the Cramps were the best live band. Yeah, maybe Jesus Lizard are comparable, but the Cramps live were just a sight to behold. And, Lux rarely had his pants on for a full performance. It was very rare.
Any number of my favorite performers you could say that about. So now kind of a little transition from, the Cramps, they kind of represent a certain era in horror and a certain era, even though they were later than that, but they represent that kind of 1950s, 1960s drive-in movie style horror.
Roger Corman era,
Yeah.
Pussycat.
Yeah, Hammer Studios movies and shit like that. Well, Hammer was actually Hammer started in late 50s, come to think of it. I think the first Dracula film with Cushing and Lee was 57.
Those have been all on lately on TCM. So I don't know if anyone's been watching those, but
I think Prime has a whole bunch of them because I've been revisiting them. Frankenstein
for this.
Yeah, Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell is on. Twins of Evil. Just a ton of the classic Hammer flicks. Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter, which is so high on my list. That's definitely a future episode. That movie, I just love it so much. But so I wanted to transition. I wanted to talk about what's a favorite horror flick from that era from the two of you. Whoever wants to go first.
Are you talking about like the 50s specifically?
Yeah, absolutely.
60s? I'm a huge fan of I don't know if this flows with it, but Vincent Price movies and any of those Universal movies I obviously love, even though they're getting a little bit people are just kind of overplaying their beauty, which is frustrating.
The thing about it is that, I was talking with a friend about all ages horror flicks, and you got a munchkin, I
do. Yeah. I know.
And it's she obviously, your daughter's way too young to really start watching, even except for maybe Abbott and Costello, which is fantastic. Abbott and Costello made Frankenstein is so good. Really.
I'm glad
I have a 10-year-old daughter. How old is she?
My daughter's 3.
Okay. Yeah, that's a little.
And she I've been playing Hocus Pocus, and even that's too scary for her.
Yeah.
My second son was afraid of the abominable snow monster on Rudolph, so we're still working our way.
See, this is the thing is I managed to see the Blob sneaking around, looking around the corner of the couch when I was 4 years old, and
right on.
I turned out fine.
You did. You are perfectly adjusted to society, Patrick.
My mother actually, she's not the sharpest tool in the shed, and she thought the Leprechaun movie was about an actual leprechaun, and she put it on for me on St. Patrick's Day when I was like 6.